Shalom.
Good evening and Shabbat Shalom. It is a pleasure to have you here with us, whether you are joining us in person at Temple Emmanuel of South Hills or whether you are with us on Zoom. We bid you welcome as well. It is a beautiful night here in Pittsburgh, maybe a little bit cooler than it has been. I don't think it rained all day, and it's a beautiful evening because we can be together to offer our Shabbat prayers, to welcome some new little ones into the world and into the community, and to embrace the peace of Shabbat. We begin, as we are wont to do, Hine Ma Tov, how good it is to be together this evening.
Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
And I invite you now to turn to page 2 as we invite forward Noah's grandparents. Jeff, Suzanne, would you join us as we bring the light, as we bring the warmth of Shabbat, page 2 in your Sidurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you both so much, and congratulations. And as we turn to page 4 and 5 in our prayer books, we find words recognizing the sweetness of Shabbat, our Friday evening Kiddush. If it is comfortable for you to do so, I would invite you to rise with me. Vahi erev, vahi voker, yom hashishi. There is evening, there is morning, a sixth day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zicharon l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha me'ahava uvratzon Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. You're welcome to be seated. Man, I need him at services all the time. I feel great up here. This is good. And when we come together in the summertime, the pace of life is just a little bit more relaxed, and it gives us an opportunity to try some new things. We're going to experiment with putting the words to the next prayer up on the screens behind us to save us the printing, to allow us a little bit of flexibility as service leaders to see what works. Apparently the televisions are not the answer to that question. There we are. And at the end of the service, I trust you will be generous and forthcoming in your feedback as to whether that worked for a new prayer, whether the text was big enough, whether you found it to be distracting. You'll let me know, I trust. It is a pleasure to introduce, or to have Rebecca introduce, a beautiful piyut, a beautiful part of our Shabbat liturgy, Anim's Mirot, for us this evening.
I'm going to introduce the melody first on violin. So you just hear the pure notes of the melody, and then we can sing it together later. You will join me.
לדעת כל רצונך. עניים זמירות, ובשירים כי אליך נפשי תערוך. עניים זמירות, ובשירים ארוך, כי אליך, כי אליך נפשי
Excited for the endless depths and mysteries that may become revealed to us each and every time we enter Shabbat. We turn now in our Sidurim, now in our prayer books, to page 20 for a setting of Lecha Dodi that will be familiar to you, that is written by the same gentleman who offered us that setting of Anim Zmirot, Josh Warshawski. Hopefully this is familiar and you love this melody as much as I do as we welcome Shabbat, as we welcome Shabbat's presence into our lives on page 20.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamur v'zakor b'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu el cham yuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shamo tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechuvu nilcha, ki mikor habracha, merosh mekedem nesucha. Sof maseh b'machashva techila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoriri, kiva orech kumi uri, shidaveri, kavod Adonai alayik nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi P'nei Shabbat nekabela.
I invite you to rise if it's comfortable.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uv'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Dodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Having welcomed the Sabbath bride, we turn to welcoming one another, turning to the people around us to wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Now that we know and said the Shabbat Shalom to those whom we pray this evening, I invite you to be seated with the exception of Noah and Eli. Noah and Eli, you can bring your parents if you want to, but would you guys come on up here? Matthew and Chelsea, of course, it is a pleasure to have turned from greeting Shabbat to greeting one another, to greeting these two wonderful young people, welcoming them into the world and into the Jewish community. If you guys are right over here, sound asleep and perfect, it's a great spot to be in for a naming. You know, we recognize that welcoming new people into this world, particularly at this time, is something of a challenge. To navigate being parents in the middle of a pandemic, to be moving for life opportunities and experiences, it's a whole lot, and it gives us lots of reason to simply get to take a deep breath to recognize that moments such as this are worth celebrating. And so we have a special prayer to offer over each of these guys, and I'm going to say that prayer twice, one for each, before offering a prayer together for you as a family. So allow me to grab my cheat sheet here. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu kayem et hayeled hazeh la'aviv v'limo v'yikra shemo b'Yisrael Noach David ben Chaya Shifra v'Matthew v'yismach ha'av b'yotzei chalitza v'tagel imo b'fri vitna zeh hakaton gadol yiyeh kashem shenichnas labrit ken yichanes l'Torah or the chuppah, or the ma'asim tovim. And if something's worth doing, it's worth doing twice. Eloheinu. Nah, you can leave it. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu kayem et hayeled hazeh Eli Shmuel ben Chaya Shifra v'Matthew v'yikra v'yismach b'yotzei chalitzav v'tagel imo b'fri vitna zeh hakaton gadol yiyeh Kashem shenichnas labrit keni chanes l'Torah l'chuppah l'ma'asim tovim. Our God and God of the ancestor have gone before us. Bless these young men, raising them in their parents' loving care. May their names be a source of joy and an inspiration to your families and indeed all of humankind as you rejoice in their growth of body and soul. May they be filled, the two of you, with wisdom and patience, and may they be led to a life of Torah, a lifetime of study and knowledge, to chuppah, a long time from now, to a partner worthy of their blessing, and to ma'asim tovim, to acts of goodness that make this world a better place. And it's my pleasure to ask upon your new family, your expanded family, the words of the priestly blessing, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless the four of you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'kuneka. May the light of God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's presence be with you through lots of sticker-filled days and lots of sleepless nights ahead, blessing you with the best gift of all, with these two little ones, and always with peace. I have a decorative certificate sharing each of their Hebrew names for posterity that you can take with you. Wish you Mazal Tov, congratulations on behalf of the congregation. You're welcome to be seated. Can we sing them back to their chairs? Simin Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simin Tov, Simin Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simin Tov, Simin Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simin Tov, Yehelanu, 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 Ulecho Yisrael, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulecho Yisrael, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulecho Yisrael, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulecho Yisrael. Truly, it is a good sign, Noah and Eli, to welcome you into this community and your parents, your grandparents, your aunt's loving embrace. And it is a pleasure to celebrate with each of you this evening. Let's continue our welcoming, although let's turn the singing back over to the professional as we turn to page 24 in our prayer book, having welcomed Shabbat, having welcomed one another, having welcomed these two young men, we turn to welcoming God's ministering angels on page 24 with words of Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And on the bottom of page 27, would you join me in the English? Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabba Ve'amad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'cha yechon uv'yom echon uv'cha yedecho Beit Yisrael Bagala uv'izman kariv v'yimeru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'alam Ulal Me'amaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitalev V'yithalal Shmei Dekudusha B'richu Le'elam Yincho Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiran Velma Vimeru. Amen. On page 28, the formal start of the central portion of our service. If it is comfortable for you to rise as we continue with the Baruch Hu prayer, only if it is comfortable, I invite you to do so, page 28.
Lai, 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 lai. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
And on the bottom of page 31, this is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. And on the bottom of page 33, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivon Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha Uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha Uvlechtecha v'derech, uvshokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beineinecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, Vasitem et kol mitzvotai, vitem kedoshim le'elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. On page 40 in our prayer books, We find our Mi Chamocha praise in giving thanks for redemption not only in times gone by, but for the opportunities presented to us in this world. Mi Chamocha on page 40.
Mi Chamocha bo'elim Adonai, mi Chamocha neder b'kodesh, norati lut osef elev, norati lut osef elev, malchutecha ra'uvanecha bokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam ze'eli anu ve'amru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, la 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 lai, lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed.
And on the bottom of page 43, give us a place to rest, Adonai, our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporeis sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. And on page 44, we find those words recognizing the sanctity, the covenant of Shabbat. We put behind us long weeks. We put behind us challenges in the world to be here in prayer and contemplation, to be here to rest and renew for the week and the month and the years ahead. We're reminded of the glory of Shabbat, the opportunity to take that rest as we continue on page 44.
Ve'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam b'rit olam. Ve'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam b'rit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Ve'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
The start of our Amidah can be found on page 46. And again, I would invite you to rise as together we join in prayer. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei Bneihem, L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'chdoshim b'chol yom yalu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. The remaining prayers from this section of our service can be found through page 62 in your prayer book. I would invite you to continue with the traditional words of prayer, or I would invite you to continue with the prayers that can only come from each of our own hearts. We take this moment, this opportunity for silent prayer, and when you have finished your prayers, I invite you to be seated. We continue the bottom of page 62 with a prayer for peace.
O se shalom bimromav, huya se shalom aleinu, ve'al Israel, ve'imru imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
And we turn now in our prayer books to page 253, where we find words of Mishaberach lecholim, taking this opportunity to focus our thoughts and our prayers on those in this world in need of healing, those who have been suffering, those who have recently recovered from surgery, and those who are in a longer process of healing. We call their names to mind, sharing them aloud if you wish to do so, as we concert our efforts, our energies, our prayers, and our actions on their behalf.
Ronnie Esquivel and Lauren Kester. Gloria Ulmer, Robert Ulmer, Lisa Wilson. Ray Blazek.
Don Ruffing, Ukrainian refugees.
Phyllis Weisband and Herb Fireman.
James Kay.
Jeffrey Abrams, both of them.
John Mahovsky.
Sonia Dickinson.
Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim. Blessed are you, God, who brings a measure of comfort to all who are ill. And together we say, Amen. Page 253.
Misheberach avotenu mekor habraha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habraha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Rebecca and I were joking before the service began that when we took a look at the outline, realized we had made a mistake, or rather I had made a mistake and she was too nice to call me out on it, that I had inadvertently left the name of our last guest speaker in the sermon slot. And man, do I wish I had a guest speaker tonight, because this week's Torah portion, it's a little more interesting to study than it is to come up with something to say to a congregation. Or put more directly, there are some really challenging parts this week. Men have the ability to annul their wives' and daughters' vows. Human beings are captured as the spoils of war with the Midianites. The Israelite tribes begin to fragment out of self-interest. I could go on. Like I said, it's better stuff for study than for a sermon. And never one to miss a shameless plug opportunity, I would invite you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, to join us in the study of this Torah portion. But turn it and turn it again, right? For everything is in it. In the middle of this Torah portion, Moses describes in detail his expectation for what the Israelites are supposed to do with the spoils of war. Quote, in the case of warriors who engaged in the campaign, they have to give 1 item out of 500 for the good of the community. From the portion divided up among the non-soldiers, 1 item out of 50. And it turns out the sergeants and the colonels and the generals each brought a free will offering, thanking God for everything having gone well. Added up, and yes, the Torah does give us a detailed accounting of each of these offerings. It marked a significant contribution for the good of the community by the community. In reading and studying these contributions and their source from among the people, I was reminded this week of a classic Jewish story. It tells of a mountain village somewhere in Europe many years ago that there lived a nobleman who was concerned about his legacy that he would leave behind. He spent a great deal of time thinking what he should do for the benefit of the community, and at last he decided he would be the one to build a brand new synagogue. To make it extra special for everyone, he decided no one else was going to be able to see it until it was done. He wanted it to be a surprise, fitting for his legacy. At long last, construction was complete, and there was a brand new synagogue that the townspeople were excited and curious to discover. When they came for the very first time, they marveled at how beautiful it was. No one could ever remember having seen a synagogue more beautiful anywhere in this world. And then they went to have a seat in their chairs, and they realized one seemingly obvious flaw in the design. "Where are the lights?" they said. "How is anyone supposed to see in this place?" The proud nobleman pointed at the brackets hung along the walls, which he had strategically placed throughout the room. And he explained to each family that when they came to the synagogue, they should each hang the torch they used to see at night along the walls. "For indeed," he said, "whenever you come to the synagogue, we need you to bring your lamp. Those lamps will provide our light. But those times you are not here, a part of the synagogue, a part of God's house will go dark." It's going to remind you that every time you're absent, we are all a little bit less, that the entire community relies upon you for light. So too, perhaps it is with the ancient Israelites. Earlier in the Torah, for the building of the tabernacle, they brought of their own free will, and they did so generously and anonymously. But by the time of this week's Torah portion, everyone was counted on specifically and individually for their contributions, for the direct good of the community. It was public, and it would be apparent if anyone was missing. And so too, of course, it is for us. Though electricity saves you from bringing your torches, please don't bring your torches. Your contributions, materially, yes, but of time and talent and friendship and community are as essential today as they were in that mountain village somewhere in Europe, as they were in the wilderness at Sinai. Because I realize that I'm quite literally preaching to the choir, those who have brought their lights to be with us this Shabbat, let me remind and assure you that this value, continuing to support that which matters to you is true in all the areas of our life. With our family, with our friends, with our work, with our volunteer efforts, and yes, with our synagogue. Bringing gifts of time and talent and time really matters. Without that continued support, even that which seems important to us can begin to go dark. You can be the ones to bring that light and energy throughout your lives. I encourage you to keep bringing that light and energy throughout your lives for the good of the community and indeed for the good of us all. Shabbat Shalom. With that, we turn back in our prayer books, back in our Sidurim. Aleinu L'Shabeach can be found on the bottom of page 282. Page 282. And when you find your page, I invite you to rise if it's comfortable to do so. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, lateit gdula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kuye aratzot, velo samanu k'mishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goralenu ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. I invite you to be seated as we prepare for words of Kaddish Yatom, our mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 294 in our prayer book. We remember those who have come before us, those upon whose shoulders we stand. We observe the period of Shloshim for Naomi Sogolov and mark the yahrzeit to the commemoration of the passing of Isidore Abrams, Samuel Ackerman, Jerome Apple, David Berkowitz, Darlene Blank, Morris Block, Harry Boaz, Dorothy Bronin, Celia Kaplan, Lillian Kaplan, Beatrice Karp, Morton Sipley, Joan Smith Clark, Esther Cohen, Anthony Dell, Sam Eisenstadt, Albert Felder, Marie Fellman, Fanny Frank, Victor Gordon, Harry Gorman, Albert Gusky, Lawrence Cantors, Florence Levine, Beverly Lewinter, Saul S. Lipman, Myron Lewick, Gertrude Mallet, Hilda Singer Miller, Sarah Nesvisky, Morris Noodleman, Jacob Presser, Harriet Rosenbaum, Al Rubenstein, Herman L. Sasnow, Sadie Shapiro, Samuel Simons, Gertrude Sperling, and Joseph Stern. Gertrude Sperling and Joseph Stern. If there are others whom you are remembering this Shabbat, or if I have inadvertently mispronounced the name of a loved one, I would invite you to share their names with the community at this time. Yehei zichronam livracha. May the memory of all of our loved ones be for us an everlasting blessing. Words of Kaddish Yatom, our mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chaye hon uv'yome hon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. B'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehe shemei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamei amaya. Yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal shemed kudsha b'richu le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran ba'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shemaya Im aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom mimramav. Huya say shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May God, who makes peace in the highest of heavens, make peace for us and for all who mourn. And together we say, Amen. You're welcome to be seated. A tremendous pleasure to welcome you back, Rebecca, to have you lead us in prayer. Thank you to you, Leslie, for making all of the magic happen behind the scenes. Chelsea and Matthew, thank you for bringing your wonderful family to celebrate this occasion and allow us to celebrate along with you. And indeed, thank you to everyone who has brought their light into this space and into this community this Shabbat, those of you in person and those who are online. We give thanks for the gifts of Shabbat and for God's strength as we head out into this week with a closing melody Adonai owes this evening. I'm not sure that it is in our prayer books. Enjoy it along with us.
Adonai oz le'amo itein, Adonai oz le'amo itein, Adonai oz le'amo itein, Adonai yivarech et amo, Adonai yivarech et amo.
God grant strength to our people. May God bless us and all peoples with peace. Shabbat Shalom.